British commercial tankers need extra security while sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. That's the message from the UK's Ministry of Transport to all British merchant ships. And it's the message from the Ministry of Defence, because it's sending a second Royal Navy warship to the Gulf of Iran. The HMS Duncan's deployment to the region has been brought forward amid escalating tensions between the West and Iran.
As part of our long-standing presence in the Gulf, HMS Duncan is deploying to the region to ensure we maintain a continuous maritime security presence, while HMS Montrose comes off task for pre-planned maintenance and crew changeover.
Earlier this week, a Royal Navy warship had to come to the aid of a BP oil tanker to fend off a group of Iranian patrol boats in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran was rattled by the Royal Navy's seizure of an Iranian supertanker last week off the coast of Gibraltar. It's suspected it was attempting to supply oil to Syria in breach of EU sanctions. One senior Iranian cleric has said that Britain deserves a slap in the face for being so bold. The UK's Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt says he doesn't want an escalation in the Gulf, but the situation is changing all the time.
The reason that the Grace 1 was seized was because of the destination. It was going to Syria. That was a clear breach of sanctions. It wasn't because it was coming from Iran. We talked to all our allies around the world, including the United States, including the Europeans, and all of us have a shared interest in keeping the waterways and seaways of the world open for business. And we want to do everything we can to make sure that we don't have an unintended escalation which could be very dangerous for the world.
Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister has expressed anger at Britain, accusing London of pandering to Washington.
The EU sanctions are meant to stop Europe from buying Syria's oil. They're not about another country selling oil to Syria. Therefore, this is a very childish and ridiculous excuse by the British. They should officially announce that they are the servants of America and act on America's behalf. America has returned the favour well by insulting their ambassador and their prime minister.
Washington is a major factor in this story. There's talk of the Grace 1 being captured after pressure from the US. And all this needs to be seen in the wider context of the failing Iranian nuclear deal, a deal that Donald Trump has always hated after he inherited it from the Obama administration. And despite Europe's best efforts to keep the deal on life support, Iran has effectively pulled the plug on it by saying that it's going to resume its uranium enrichment program. Europe is still clambering in order to come up with a complicated go-around for trade with Iran to circumvent US sanctions and preserve at least some part of the nuclear agreement with Iran. But Tehran is increasingly fed up with what it sees as Europe's inability to counter Washington's hard line. And with tensions ratcheting up, it's British ships getting caught in the crosshairs.
George Samley, a senior research fellow at the Global Policy Institute in London, says Britain's tough stance on Iran is a bid to please the US.
The UK is so embedded with the United States and is so eager to keep in with Washington that it may not take seriously what Iran is saying. The British don't want to do anything that will upset the Americans. So, and particularly now with the Brexit coming up in the next few months, Britain is going to really, really rely on the United States. So I think that explains why they've undertaken something that is extraordinary. I mean, they've never done this before. They've never seized an Iranian oil tanker. When you listen to Hunt, I mean, Hunt gives no coherent explanation as to why he did this extraordinary thing of seizing this Iranian oil tanker at the time when the position of his government is that they want to maintain the JCPOA. They want, this Iran denuclearization agreement to stay in place, and they want to get around the American sanctions. So his actual policy is the exact opposite of what he's claiming in public.